1 Kings chapter 7. Solomon dedicated 13 years to building his own house, and he successfully completed all the construction. He also constructed the house of the Forest of Lebanon. Its dimensions were 100 cubits in length, 50 cubits in width, and 30 cubits in height. It rested on 4 rows of cedar pillars with cedar beams atop the pillars. The house of the Forest of Lebanon was covered with cedar above the beams, which were supported by 45 pillars, 15 in each row. The windows were arranged in 3 rows, with light opposite light in 3 ranks. The doors and doorposts were square, and the windows aligned with them, with light opposite light in 3 ranks. A porch with pillars was created, measuring 50 cubits in length and 30 cubits in width. This porch stood in front of them, while additional pillars and a thick beam were positioned in front. Solomon built a porch for the throne, which was known as the Porch of Judgment. It was covered with cedar from the floor to the top. Adjacent to his dwelling was an inner court that resembled the same work. Solomon also constructed a house for Pharaoh's daughter, whom he had married. This house was similar in design to the porch. These structures were built with costly stones, meticulously cut both inside and out, from the foundation to the coping and on the outside toward the great court. The foundation consisted of expensive, large stones, 10 cubits and 8 cubits in size. Above were costly stones in proportion to hewn stones, alongside cedar beams. The great court surrounding the house was comprised of 3 rows of hewn stone and a row of cedar beams, both for the inner court of the house of the Lord and for the porch of the house. King Solomon sent for Hiram from Tyre. Hiram was the son of a widow from the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a skilled craftsman in brass. He possessed wisdom, understanding, and expertise in all sorts of brass work. He came to King Solomon and completed all of his work. Hiram cast 2 brass pillars, each 18 cubits high, and a line of 12 cubits encircled each pillar. He made 2 capitals of molten brass to place on top of the pillars. Each capital was 5 cubits in height. He crafted intricate network and chainwork for the capitals on top of the pillars, with 7 lattice works for one capital and 7 for the other. He made the pillars and 2 rows of pomegranates for the lattice work to cover the capitals on top of the pillars. He set up the pillars in the porch of the temple. He named the right pillar Jachin and the left pillar Boaz. Lily work adorned the tops of the pillars, and the construction of the pillars was complete. Solomon also fashioned a molten sea, 10 cubits from brim to brim, round in shape, with a height of 5 cubits. A line of 30 cubits encompassed it around. Under its brim, there were gourds in 10-cubit intervals, encircling the sea in 2 rows that were cast. The sea stood on 12 oxen, with 3 facing north, 3 facing west, 3 facing south, and 3 facing east. The sea rested upon them, and all their hindquarters were inward. The thickness of it was a handbreadth, and its brim was shaped like the brim of a cup, with lily blossoms. It contained 2,000 baths. Solomon also made 10 basins of brass, each basin holding 40 baths. Each basin was 4 cubits, and there was 1 basin on each of the 10 bases. He placed 5 bases on the right side of the house and 5 on the left. He set the sea on the right side of the house, facing east, towards the south. Hiram crafted the basins, shovels, and bowls. Hiram finished all the work that he did for King Solomon in the house of the Lord. 2 pillars, 2 bowl-shaped capitals on top of the pillars, the 2 latticeworks to cover the 2 bowl-shaped capitals on top of the pillars, and 400 pomegranates for the 2 latticeworks, 2 rows of pomegranates for each latticework to cover the 2 bowl-shaped capitals on the pillars. He made 10 stands of bronze, each stand being 4 cubits long, 4 cubits wide, and 3 cubits high. The construction of the stands was as follows. They had side panels attached to crossbars. On the panels between the crossbars were lions, oxen, and cherubim. Above and below the lions and oxen, there were wreaths of hammered work. Each stand had 4 bronze wheels and axles of bronze, and at its 4 corners were support bases. Beneath the laver were cast support structures, each with wreaths at its side. The mouth of the laver was within a cubit from the top, and its opening was round, resembling the shape of a pedestal, a cubit and a half in diameter. On its opening were carvings, but the supports were square, not round. The 4 wheels were under the supports, and the axles of the wheels were attached to the stand. Each wheel was a cubit and a half in diameter. The wheels resembled chariot wheels, with axles, rims, spokes, and hubs, all of bronze. The 4 supports were at the 4 corners of each stand, with cast designs on each side. On the plates of its supports and on its frame, he engraved cherubim, lions, and palm trees, according to the space available, with wreaths all around. He made the 10 stands this way. All of them were cast in one mold, one size, and one shape. He also made 10 bronze basins, each basin holding 40 baths and measuring 4 cubits across. There was 1 basin for each of the 10 stands. He placed 5 stands on the right side of the house and 5 on the left side of the house. He set the sea on the right side of the house, facing southeast. Hiram also crafted the pots, the shovels, and the bowls. He completed all the work that he had undertaken for King Solomon in the house of the Lord. The 2 pillars, the 2 bowl-shaped capitals on top of the pillars that were on top of the 2 pillars, and the 2 latticeworks to cover the 2 bowl-shaped capitals on top of the pillars. 400 pomegranates for the 2 latticeworks, 2 rows of pomegranates for each latticework to cover the 2 bowl-shaped capitals on the pillars. The 10 stands and the 10 basins on the stands. The 1 sea and the 12 oxen underneath the sea. And the pots, the shovels, and the bowls, all these articles that Hiram made for King Solomon for the house of the Lord were of polished bronze. The king cast them in the Jordan Valley in the clay ground between Succoth and Zereda. Solomon made all these articles in great abundance. The weight of the bronze was not determined. Solomon also made all the equipment that was in the house of the Lord, the golden altar, the golden table on which the bread of the presence was placed, the lampstands of pure gold, 5 on the right and 5 on the left in front of the inner sanctuary, the gold floral work, lamps, and tongs, the pure gold basins, wick trimmers, sprinkling bowls, ladles, and censers, and the gold door sockets for the innermost room, the most holy place, and also for the doors of the main hall of the temple. When all the work that King Solomon had done for the house of the Lord was completed, Solomon brought in the consecrated items that his father David had dedicated, including the silver, the gold, and the utensils, and he placed them in the treasuries of the house of the Lord.